Hey, it's Luke Smith. So we're going to react to this video. He's finally back. There's some interesting points in here. I don't agree with everything, but let's get into it.
I think people severely underestimate the effect that they can have on the world. In fact, it's almost like the disease of the modern life. People have this perception, they have this idea of the world as just being a bunch of forces beyond my control. They're
I won't get into it too much. He's going to talk about this for a while, but I do believe that people are heavily constrained by the environment they're in and just a bunch of factors that they don't have control over. I understand that there's a lot of there's a pragmatic value to fixating on the things you do have control over, and that there is some wiggle room, and it's basically impossible to know if you can get out of something or you're permanently stuck in it. So there's always value in trying because you don't know for sure. But yeah, I won't go into it further, but I think you guys get the gist.
they're historical forces. There are, I don't know, all these trends that I can't helpfully, I can't resist. I just have to go along with them. And ultimately, I have no control over my own life. And I think
That's very different. I mean, control over your life, I don't even know what that means. Is your life all of society? Is it being able to get whatever you want? Because if it is, then obviously no one has control over being able to get whatever they want. If it's being able to pick what coffee you drink or being able to like control where you live or something, that is more in people's control. But that type of statement is so vague. It's okay. He's kind of just rambling. I do stuff like that too. It makes a lot of sense. But yeah, you got to be more precise if you're going to talk about this. But anyways, let's continue. You guys get it.
that could not be, when you eventually in your own life realize that is not the case, it might be too late. So now, I've done a video before. I was going to say a little bit ago, it's probably a couple years ago now, talking about like the kind of implicit psyop in television.
I do love the thing where it's like for him, it's just always been the same. And even though the last video was like 2 years ago, and I totally get this, he's just like picking up exactly where he left off, which is cool. I like that part of his personality.
Right? Why, especially if you have this kind of a TV show where everything resets at the end of the show, right? You know, people do stuff, they make friends, they win money, they do whatever, and at the end it all resets back to normal because you have to get ready for the next show. That implicitly tells you something about life. It tells you that life is the way it is, and you can't really do anything about it. But I think talking about TV is a little superficial. A way to make it a little clearer is that all of us in the modern world have basically gone through what is a kind of brainwashing to make you servile, to make you accept that basically everything is beyond your control. And really, that's
I don't know that I agree with this. To some extent, I believe that people are trying to control your mind. Psyop, I don't know. I really think a lot of it is more just human beings develop a sense of powerlessness from their own trial and error in life. Maybe paired with other stuff, it compounds, but I believe that this is not the main factor.
basically formal education. And what I mean by that is like formal education is not like the real world. You know, the real world, you have basically infinite possibilities. And if you do something unexpected or valuable or new, that is something that is going to, I mean, that's the best thing you can basically do. You know, you can be a little entrepreneurial. You can, I don't know, readjust how people perceive things. You don't have to follow a strict assignment. You know what I mean? You don't have to. Whereas in formal education, obviously, the goal is all of the trials you deal with are contrived trials. They're like little games. You know, here's an assignment, do it this way, color in the lines, you know, spell the right way, et cetera, et cetera. And anything outside of that is basically a waste of your time. And you know, normie psychology, like mainstream psychology, obviously, even they have this concept of learned helplessness, right? And that's the idea that eventually if you put a person in a position where their actions don't really affect the direction of where they're going, they learn helplessness. They become basically depressed. Like depression.
This is one thing I wanted to bring up. So he talked about a lot there. I kind of agree with the formal education thing, that it's very rigid and it doesn't necessarily correspond to the amount of options you might have in real life. I definitely don't agree that people have infinite options. The options people have, in a really simplified explanation for the point of this video, you can't choose anything that you can't even think about, and you can't like choose anything you're not aware of. And even if you could go through every single possibility, humans don't have enough time or energy to do that. So realistically, people choose things that are obvious to them, that come from their mind, and they choose that. That's definitely not infinite. It's a very finite space that's very, very learned from the environment and taught by the other humans around them. So you're picking options that are already very curated. You're not just like picking up stones and randomly flipping them around. There's too many options to do, and most of them don't matter at all. So, but yeah, the learned helplessness thing, I just think that that's real. If you try stuff and it doesn't work, then you're just learning a correct thing. Now, what's the problem is you never know if the action that you just did is going to have the exact same consequence that it did the time before you did it. And this is where it's like the reward for an action can be so delayed in the future that you'll never reach it unless you do this extremely long thing where you basically get like an incomplete reward from it.
More or less, I mean, depression more or less is like people who are in a...
Oh yeah, and depression is not just about not having options. Depression is more about, I feel like, first of all, it's like a physiological state of a human being. So it doesn't really have to do with what their day-to-day behaviors are. It's more to do with like, literally, is their body in a certain like energetic state? Are their breathing patterns a certain way? Are they smiling a certain amount? So it's not entirely tied to learned helplessness or whatever.
In a life position where they don't feel like their actions make an effect on what they're doing, right? So everything, they don't want to do anything. They just sit around. They don't feel like they can affect the world, you know. And that...
I think a better description of a depressed person is that they don't want to do something that they think won't accomplish anything, and they don't have any better ideas, right? So it's not so much, if they had the infinite ideas that you kind of alluded to, where you can just come up with another idea, and that's going to work. And I mean, some people try and do this, and they come up with like 50 ideas, and they try all 50, and all 50 fail. What do you learn from that? It's like...
And that is kind of the disease that so many people have, you know. What's even worse is we have this mindset in the modern world, especially in, let's say, the post-Enlightenment world, that this is a justification for all of this, right? So you have this idea that everything in the world is just kind of a natural trend, right? That you ultimately cannot arrest, you cannot stop. It just has to be how it is, you know?
I mean, let's be real. We're an individual human being. Can we really stop what Russia is going to do, what China is going to do, what the US is going to do? It's insane, dude. Like, there's 7 billion people, and you're one of 7 billion. You're probably not going to be the main character that makes decisions. And even if there was a main character, I don't really think that actually is that important, and I'll get to that later. He's about to get to probably the main point I disagree with.
Now, this is very ubiquitous in like politics and stuff like that. You know, you're told this is just how it is. You know, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't have an effect. This is just a natural end result of what's going on. And this is, you know, we have sociologists, we have economists, we have you know, all these political theorists who will tell you this is how it has to be, you know?
Okay, I definitely agree with him that you shouldn't just listen to other people telling you how the world is, because they don't know. The world is too complicated. Even though someone has the title sociologist doesn't mean they can predict human groups, even though that's the entire purpose of them. And so you should be skeptical of that and not completely reject things that they say are impossible or whatever.
And this isn't me endorsing some kind of utopianism, but I am saying that people need to understand there have been so many times in history, in fact, not just different discrete times, at every moment in history, history can be defined by individual people, okay? I'm very much a fan of the whole great man theory of history. I think...
Okay, so this is probably the biggest thing I really disagree with. And the best way for me to articulate this is the following. There are significant people in the timeline of human civilization. What I'm in disagreement with is that those individuals themselves are significant. So it's like, if you replay human civilization from the beginning 1,000 times, there's always going to be a bunch of significant individuals, but it's more of like a statistical, deterministic inevitability. There has to be some individuals that are significant, that are guiding the direction, but the actual specifics of those individuals don't matter. It's that they always are going to exist in one form or another. And one of the examples he's going to get into is how like French people speak French because of some person, I forget who it is, but in my explanation here, I would say, yes, things are going to happen as a consequence of other things, but it doesn't actually matter that that person was whoever they are. If you rerun the simulation 1,000 times, there's always going to be someone who sets the language for the rest of a big group of people.
I think that's really the most accurate way. I mean, it's the oldest, basest, and most traditional way of describing history, really. You know, you look at the country of France, okay, why do French people speak French? Okay, because Julius Caesar, millennia ago, invaded Gaul. He installed the Roman Empire, or the Roman Republic in that area, and those people speak that language because of this one man. You know what I mean?
Right, and it's like, that's probably true. But like I was saying before, it doesn't matter. What if they spoke a different language? It's one of these arbitrary things. It's like, you know, it doesn't, and if you replay human civilization, everyone is always going to speak a language, and it's going to be probably because of some sort of invasion like that, okay? Let's continue though, you guys get it.
I mean, that's just what kind of I'm getting at, and there are many domains now. Like, it would be stupid to say, you know, figures nowadays, I mean, let's say people are talking about Trump because he got reelected, but it would be stupid to say that Donald Trump is not a significant figure. You know, we don't exactly know how he's going to be significant. We don't know, but either way, what it's stupid to say, and this is what the kind of the point of what I'm getting at. It's stupid to say something like, there are just natural tendencies in the world. There's nothing we can do to stop them. Therefore, if any one person does this, that, or the other, it doesn't really matter. Therefore, if I do this, that, or the other, it doesn't matter. And again, you're taught this, you know, again, in formal education, implicitly. It's not like your teachers sit down and say, I'm going to brainwash, I'm going to psy out this little kid. But they just accidentally do it because, you know, it necessarily is this affair of putting a kid in a box, like teaching him to do something simple, but also making sure he doesn't expand past that box, you know?
I think he kind of alluded at this, that it's not intentional, but it's like when people share information and their ideas like a teacher does with their students, they're not putting them in a box. They're transferring their own ideas. Some people might literally be trying to do that, but I think it's more of just human beings are extremely limited in what they can comprehend and what they can predict, what they can understand. And so that's just going to propagate through the system. And no offense, but Luke is also a human being, so he probably is suffering from the exact same limitations.
No? And even online, like I will note, like there are a lot of guys, you know, they'll mail me or email me, or like they'll write a comment saying, hey Luke, I want to make money on the internet. I want to do this. I want to blah, blah, blah. What should I do? And it's like, even then, when people want to be entrepreneurial, and this is unfortunate, when they want to be entrepreneurial, where they want to take that extra step, they still almost have this reflex to just ask someone, what do I do step by step? Explain it to me. That's what I need. And that quite literally is like not how it works. I think what's more important, especially for like I think younger guys, like I think it's more.
I disagree with that. I think a lot of entrepreneurship is literally like someone else knows the formula and then they share it with like a specific person and that person reproduces it and then it does scale and work. It doesn't have to be like some sort of novel, mind-bending thing. Entrepreneurship is not a good representation of true human innovative thought. A lot of times, innovative thought, like truly just pure innovative thought, is cast aside by a lot of the pragmatic people because it's so difficult to figure out how to make it a profitable enterprise. Meanwhile, something else that's like not really that innovative at all, but is easily copyable or reproducible with like maybe a slight variation or something, that's what they're going to probably lean towards because it's about profitability. That's what entrepreneurship is about.
It's more important for them to sit around and have kind of real world experiences with like kind of how the world actually works, you know, like to unlearn your learned helplessness, to see like, oh, I can very easily have an effect on this. I can do this. I mean, just an example. I was only told like last month. You know,
the thing about learned helplessness is I really think it's like people feel powerless about certain things that they do want a lot in life, and they can't just change. Like if they want to have $1 million, they can't just make that happen. And they might try a lot of things throughout their life. And unlearning that would be as simple as just getting lucky because the environment allows you to get the $1 million for some completely arbitrary reason. You know, I guess like, let's say someone does like drop shipping and they make a lot of money compared to someone else who tries something else who doesn't make a lot of money. Is the drop shipping person, did they unlearn their learned helplessness? Did the other person, are they just reinforcing learned helplessness?
there's the guy who made the.
I guess it's just an open-ended rhetorical question. I don't know, but
What is it? The Yankee Candle Company, right? So like in America, they sell these like scented candles, all this kind of stuff. It's a massive. The guy who started it, he has this massive mansion. He like remade, I think the house he grew up in, just made it like, I don't know, like very beautiful architecture. You should look it up. But either way, the guy who started that, you know, he basically made candles when he was 16, just as he wanted to get his mom something for Christmas, and she liked it, and he turned it into a business, and the rest is kind of history. And obviously, it's not like this guy has changed the direction of the universe, but he's changed like what you find in like gift stores, because now you have this new option, and other companies imitate it and all this kind of stuff, and it changes the vibe of houses and all this. But that's like really what you really need to realize is like everything is like that. There are no like, there's no like, I don't know.
that's what we call luck, Luke. It's where a human has an idea, they do it, and they get massively rewarded for it. Okay, the human doesn't know if it's going to do that. They cannot predict the future. Maybe there's some heuristic that they were using, like there aren't that many candles in houses, right? And maybe that's like enough for them to rationalize that they are basically able to predict that entire thing. But for the vast majority of people, they may have similar ideas or thoughts, but it's not going to pan out the same way. And that's why they believe that the environment is probably the biggest factor in something succeeding or failing. Like, what if someone else, the day before this guy, this Yankee Candles guy, decided they were going to release candles too? Like, he has no control over that. It's basically just a random thing. Someone else could be just as likely to have come to that conclusion. What if 20 other people did? What if he got like, you know, there's just so many things that have to go right that are fundamentally out of anyone's control. So
Materialist like thing that led that guy to reach this particular entrepreneurial solution. And that's like the entirety of our life. Like every little business that started or every invention is something like this.
Yeah, and most of them are basically really small scale and effectively failures. If you're gonna use Yankee Candle as like the ideal, almost none of them end up that way, right? So how is this advice actually statistically like dispersible or reproducible by other human beings? In fact, you could even say that if someone makes that much money from their business idea and there are thousands of other people involved in the entire thing, that it's just a fundamentally unfair deal for everyone else involved too. Why? Because he had an idea to make a candle? Like he's the one who makes all this money, but the 1,000 other people involved with manufacturing and distributing don't?
This. It's often people who happen upon something, and there might be many things that are just.
I guess that's what I'm kind of railing on. I just don't believe that's brilliant. I just think it's opportunistically, lucky or favorable.
Just laying there that we don't know. It'd be kind of like imagine if we had. Well, actually, there have been many human societies that have reached a level of complexity that don't have something basic like the wheel. The Incan Empire, they didn't have wheels. They were great. They expanded over a lot of territory, and you can argue why they don't have it. But like, imagine being like the Incan emperor, and then being introduced. Oh, we could like invent a wheel and do this, that, or the other. That's kind of how it is, and we're in that same position where there's so many opportunities we don't know of for. I don't want to say like even entrepreneurial actions, because it's not. I'm not really saying this to make money or to make businesses or anything like that. That's not really my objective in saying this. What I am saying is that individual people obviously have way more of an impact on the world than they expect. And people, I think the error, if you...
Yeah, just to rail it one more time, those individuals aren't the reason that they have an impact. It is just there will always be an individual or some small number of human beings that fill that role. But it's not going to be a large number. It's always going to be a small number that hit this thing, and it's not because of their decisions, really. It's because of their environment. And if you reduce it down, their decisions are a product of their environment anyways, because their genetics affect their decisions, and the people around them affect their decisions. Everything affects their decisions. They basically are the environment, right?
Look at the world as just being something. That's what other people are doing. I'm just an observer. That is such a negative worldview, because it really consigns you to being a cog in the machine, right? Because if that's truly how you...
A cog in the machine, or a cluster of atoms in the universe. It's like, you're not even a cog in the machine, bro. It's the scale at which it's human beings. I'm not trying to, you gotta just be like at peace with the scale of things. It's not a cog in the machine. It's much, much smaller than that.
How you think of things, you really can't do anything other than be an employee, right? And that actually, just as a side note about that, I talked about this in kind of the BS Jobs podcast or whatever, but like, people nowadays have this assumption that that's how the world works. You have to be an employee, and you work yourself up in the corporate ladder, and you make more money, and you're a bigger employee. You're a bigger slave to some kind of company.
Well, anyways, I think I'm going to stop the video here because this is already long enough, and you guys kind of get the gist. I really like this guy. I think he's super smart, and he's really observant, and he has really cool ideas. But I have some differences in opinion, and I have no idea what's actually true. I will concede, though, that if you have some sort of mindset more like his, which is why he says it's negative to not have this, and it's positive to feel like you have power and you can effectively change anything as long as you, I don't know, have this random combination of stuff he can't really articulate, but as long as you keep an open mind to it, you're on the right path. That is pragmatically useful, I think. Like, you know, you should keep your mind open to different things. At least if you look at things in terms of more of like a smaller scale thing where you're just like, you know, I am trying to accomplish a very specific goal. And so I will try and pretend like I don't know how to get there, but there is a way to get there, and maybe I will find the way to get there. And maybe at the end of it all, it had nothing to do with what you were thinking at all and everything to do with things outside of your control, or maybe it was a mix. Like I said a little bit ago, I really don't think there's even a real distinction between human and environment. I think they are the same thing. I think we are all part of the same environment. But anyways, let me know what you think about it, and whether I should do more of these type of reaction videos. I just wanted to try something new. I mostly do other stuff on this channel, but yeah, so thanks for watching, guys.